The phone slipped from my hand, clattering onto the hardwood floor with a crack that echoed like a gunshot in the silent apartment. My breath caught, jagged and sharp, as the text message burned into my retinas. Meet me at the pier tonight, 8 p.m. Don't tell Elise. It was from Caleb, my boyfriend of 3 years, sent to a number I didn't recognize. My thumb hovered over the screen, trembling, as my heart pounded a frantic rhythm against my ribs. The words didn't make sense, not yet, but they clawed at something deep inside, something I'd been ignoring for weeks. The apartment smelled of burnt coffee and lavender candles, a mix that churned my stomach as I stood frozen in the living room. Caleb's jacket hung on the chair, its leather creased from his broad shoulders. I could still hear his laugh from last night, warm and easy, as we sprawled on the couch watching old sitcoms. But now, the memory felt like a lie, fraying at the edges. I picked up the phone, the cracks spiderwebbing across the screen like my thoughts, fractured, chaotic. Why the pier? Why secrecy? My mind screamed for answers, but my heart whispered, you already know. I'd noticed the signs, hadn't I? The late nights at work, the phone tilted just out of my view, the way his eyes darted away when I asked about his day. Small things, easily brushed off as stress or quirks. Caleb was a graphic designer, always juggling deadlines, always networking. I'd rationalized it all, because love makes you stupid. Because love makes you blind. I sank onto the couch, the cushions sagging under my weight, and stared at the text again. My fingers itched to call him, to demand answers, but something stopped me. A cold, creeping dread that if I asked, the truth would shatter everything. Instead, I opened my laptop, hands shaking as I logged into his cloud account. We'd shared passwords once, a gesture of trust when our relationship was new and unshakable. Now it felt like a betrayal of my own to use it. Photos loaded, one by one. A gallery of our life together. Us at the beach, laughing at a festival, kissing under Christmas lights. But then a new folder, work trip. My pulse quickened. Caleb hadn't mentioned a trip. I clicked, and there she was, a woman with dark curls and a smile that cut like glass. In one photo, she leaned into him at a bar, her hand on his arm. In another, they stood on a pier. Not our pier, but one I didn't recognize. Her head tilted against his shoulder. My chest tightened, a vice squeezing out air. The timestamps were from last month, when he'd said he was at a conference in Chicago. I slammed the laptop shut, my breath hitching. The room spun, the walls closing in, their pale blue paint suddenly suffocating. I wanted to scream, to throw something, but all I could do was sit there, drowning in the weight of my own denial. He wouldn't. Not Caleb. Not after everything. Our late-night talks, our plans for a future. The way he'd held me when my mom got sick. But the evidence was there, undeniable, mocking me. The clock ticked toward evening, each second a hammer against my nerves. I could confront him now. But what would he say? Lie? Apologize? Or worse, admit it with that calm, detached tone he used when he wanted to avoid a fight? No. I needed to see it for myself. I needed proof that would burn away the last shred of hope clinging to my heart. At 7:30, I pulled on my coat, the wool scratching against my skin, and drove to the pier. The night was cold, the air sharp with salt and seaweed. The boardwalk stretched out under flickering streetlights, its wooden planks creaking under my boots. Couples strolled hand in hand, their laughter a cruel contrast to the storm in my chest. I tucked myself behind a shuttered ice cream stand, the peeling paint rough against my back, and waited. At 8:02 Caleb appeared, his silhouette unmistakable, tall, slightly slouched, hands in his pockets. My heart lurched, a mix of love and rage. Then she arrived. The woman from the photos, her curls bouncing as she walked, her red coat a splash of color against the gray night. She hugged him, too long, too close, and he didn't pull away. My nails dug into my palms, drawing blood, as they sat on a bench, their heads bent together, whispering. I couldn't hear their words, but their body language screamed what I didn't want to know. Her hand brushed his knee. He smiled, soft and intimate, the way he used to smile at me. My vision blurred with tears, but I forced myself to watch, to memorize every gesture, every betrayal. I wanted to run to them, to scream, to demand why. But I stayed rooted, a ghost in my own life. Then she laughed loud and sharp, and said something that made Caleb's face change, guilt, maybe, or fear. He glanced around, and for a moment, I thought he saw me. My breath caught, but his eyes passed over my hiding spot, unseeing. They stood, and she slipped her arm through his, leading him toward the parking lot. I followed, my footsteps silent, my heart a drumbeat of fury and grief. In the lot, they stopped at a sleek black car, hers I assumed. She turned to him, her voice low but clear in the still night. "You need to tell her, Caleb. This can't go on." My stomach dropped, the words a knife twisting in my gut. He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture I knew too well, and muttered, "I know. I don't want to hurt her." "Hurt her," she scoffed, her tone bitter. "You're already hurting her. Every day you lie, you're breaking her." I wanted to hate her, but her words mirrored my own thoughts, a cruel echo of my pain. Caleb sighed, his shoulders slumping. "I love her, Mia. But I love you too." The world tilted. Love. He loved her. The confession hit like a physical blow, knocking the air from my lungs. I stumbled back, my boots scraping against gravel. And they both turned. Caleb's eyes widened, his face paling as he saw me. "Elise," he whispered, the word barely audible. I didn't run. I didn't scream. I walked toward them, each step deliberate, my voice steady despite the storm inside. "Perfect," I said, my tone cold as ice. "You orchestrated this little performance, Caleb. Now let me make it real." Mia stepped back, her eyes flickering with guilt, but I ignored her. This was about him. About us. "How long?" I asked, my voice trembling now, betraying the cracks in my composure. "Elise, he started, but I cut him off." "How long?" 6 months, he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. 6 months of lies, of stolen moments, of building a life with someone else while I planned our future. The betrayal sank deeper, a poison spreading through my veins. I turned to Mia, who looked away, her bravado gone. "Did you know about me?" I asked, needing to hear it. She nodded, her lips tight. "I told him to end it. I didn't want to be the other woman." "But you were," I said, the words sharp enough to cut. "You both were." Caleb reached for me, but I stepped back, the space between us a chasm. "I didn't mean for this to happen," he said, his voice breaking. "I never wanted to hurt you." "Then why did you?" The question hung in the air, unanswered, because there was no answer that could undo the damage. I looked at him, at the man I'd loved, and saw a stranger. The pier, the ocean, the night. All of it faded, leaving only the raw, bleeding truth. I turned and walked away, my footsteps echoing on the boardwalk. Caleb called after me, his voice desperate, but I didn't look back. In my mind, I saw the future we'd planned, gone, shattered like my phone's screen. But as I drove home, tears streaming down my face, a strange clarity emerged. This wasn't the end. It was a beginning. I'd rebuild, piece by piece, without him. And one day, he'd realize what he'd lost. The twist came later, when I found a letter in his jacket pocket, written but never sent. It was to Mia, ending their affair, dated the day before I'd found the text. He'd chosen me, or tried to, but it was too late. The betrayal was real, and so was my resolve. I burned the letter, the flames curling around his words, and with them, I let go of the man I thought I knew.